Allah. La hawla wa la quwwata Allah. La ilaha illallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Ahmaduhu wasta'inuhu wastadihi wastaghfiruhu wa umminu bihi jalla wa la akfuruhu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. As-salahu bil huda wa din al-haq liyadhhiruhu ala din kulihi walau karihal mushrikun. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him. We seek His help, His assistance, and His guidance. We believe in Him and do not disbelieve in Him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. Allah sent him, that is Muhammad, with Deen al-Haq, the religion, the way, the methodology of truth. And this way of life known as Islam will rise to its proper position in this world, whether the mushriks like it or not. Amma ba'd fa inna astikal hadith kitabullah wa awtaka al-ura kalimatul taqwa wa khayrul milali milatu Ibrahim wa khayrul sunani sunatu Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ashraful hadith dhikrullah wa asanu al-kasasi hadha al-Quran wa khayrul umuri awazzimuha wa shayrul umuri muhtatatuha wa asanu al-hadyu hadyu al-anbiya wa ashraful maut katlu shuhada wa amma al-amma dalalatul ba'd al-huda wa khayrul amali ma nafa'a wa khayrul hadi ma uthba'a wa shayrul amma al-kalb. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the most truthful of discourses is Kitabullah, or the Book of Allah. The most trustworthy word is taqwa, or fear of Allah. The best of the community is the community of Ibrahim. The best way of life is the Sunnah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The remembrance of Allah is the most glorious of all things. Best of all narrations is Quran. The best acts are those requiring the highest degree of will and determination. The worst acts are those based on innovation. The best way of life is the one adopted by the prophets of Allah. The most glorious death is the death of the martyr. The most wretched blindness consists of going astray after finding the right way. Best acts are the ones that yield benefits. Best guidance is that which people may be able to follow. The worst blindness is the blindness of the heart. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna Allah yahmaru bil adli wal ihsani wa itai dil kurba wa yanha dil fashai wal munkari wal bagi yaitakum la'alakum tadakkarum. Allah commands justice, the doing of good, and liberality to kith and kin. He forbids all shameful deeds and injustice and rebellion. He instructs you that you may receive admonition. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. فَمَنْ يَرِيدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. O you believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and do not die except in a state of Islam. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And hold fast altogether by the rope which Allah stretches out for you, and be not divided amongst yourselves. And remember with gratitude Allah's favor on you. Kuntum khayra umatin ukrijat lil nasi tamaruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. You're the best peoples raised up for mankind, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong, and believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khairul mursaleen. Muhammadin an-Nabi al-Ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ijma'in. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa kad makru makrahum wa indallaha makrahum wa in kana makrahum litazula minhu al-jibalu. Most people might wonder why this is one of my favorite ayats, but it's very explanatory. Mighty indeed were the plots which they made, but their plots were well within the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though they were as they might shake the hills. In the when you look in the dictionary, the Arabic dictionary, it shows that these plots were so devastating, so well put together, so well structured and highly financed, that the hills might disappear. In other words, it might be such a trembling, that the hills might disappear. Now here it says it might shake the hills, cause in other words, the strongest systems of power bases might begin to shake and tremble under the weight of the plans, schemes, and designs of the non-believers. That's how big they are. That's how well financed they are. On the other hand, the believers have a certain thing that goes along with them, and one is, I believe in Allah as Lord, my Rabbi, and I believe in Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam as an-Nabiyin, as the messenger, and I accept Islam Adina. That means Islam is a way of life. And so this may sound like not a whole lot, but it gets to be a big deal. There's another just a few of these ayats. Have we not made for him a pair of eyes, a tongue, and a pair of lips, and shown him the two highways? But he hath made no haste on the path that is steep. And what will explain to the path that is steep? Is the freeing of a slave, or the giving of food on a day of privation to the orphan with claims of relationship, or to the indigent down in the dust? Of course, when you go through this ayat now, you run across another thing. And the question is, from the first statement, that there will be plots and schemes so heavy in the life of a believer, whatever generation, whatever time he passes through this cycle of what we call life, it doesn't make a difference, because they're going to come up against things that are so trying and testing that it would shake the very foundations of the earth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not asking a question, but it's making a statement. I gave you two eyes, two lips, and I gave you basically a brain to come up with some conclusions, right? So now you can think about what goes on, and then you got two lips, you can think about them. And after all that, I have shown you two highways, two roads. In the song in the West, they have two highways, the high road and the low road. And I'll be in Scotland before you. You take the high road, I take the low road, I'll be there before you. The Quran refers to the two highways, and it goes on to say, but he had made no haste in the path that is steep. Now, there's one highway we're going to talk about that's very steep. It's not only steep, but it's narrow too, because there ain't a whole lot of people either want to get on it or can get on it. They ain't even thinking about it. This road is narrow. That means it's dangerous. The higher you go, the dangerous it get. And it's steep. Yeah, it's very steep. So ain't going to be a whole lot of people go on that road. Remember, you got two roads. One is kind of easy-going road. But Allah asks the question, he had made no haste to the path that is steep. That means whoever he's talking about, us, them, the masses of people, they have not made any preparation. They have not prepared themselves. They have not prepared their family. They are not prepared for the road that's steep. And as you go higher up on the road, if you keep going real high, you start running out of breath. The higher you go, the air gets thinner. And the higher you go in any group, movement, or organization, the higher you go up the chain of command of the hierarchy, is less people up there. The air is thinner, the functionaries is thinner also. And he had made no haste. He ain't in no hurry now. When I say he, is talking about all of us. Generally, we not going to make any preparation for the road that is steep, narrow, and not a whole lot of chances of making it to the top. If you look in the Masjid, if you look in the Islamic centers, and if you look in the Muslim institutions around the world today, you will find the brothers just went out to do some fundraising. And of course, we don't bet, but you can bet that ain't nobody going to be talking a whole lot about, okay, now we're going to jump on the straight and narrow and the steep road. But what will explain to thee the road that is steep? Is freeing someone from bondage. That means there's an oppressor in the world that's enslaving people, that is harming people. And that steep road means challenging that entity, that government, that group of people, that king, that pharaonic personality, right? That's what it means. And then giving of food on a day of privation to the orphans with claim of relationship, and this is it here, or to the indigent down in the dust, face down in the dust. Don't nobody want to have nothing to do with them. Most of us will walk by that type of a person or that group of people. They may be the homeless in each society, the unhoused, as they're calling now. Boy, these people really come up with stuff. And those are the people that we're going to flock to. I mean, we are. They're not. Why we flock to them? Because those are the people outlined in the historical process. That is the uphill road. Very few people are going to make preparations for that uphill road. It's too narrow on that road and it's too steep. And there's all kind of debris and stuff coming down from the upper parts to hinder you and to dissuade you from that road and from that process. Well, today I want to talk a little bit about something that we was prepared to go out with the brothers, but after listening to the news over and over again, I thought for my historical background that I might take leave to mention a few of the things that are happening in the news today. And as we go along on this journey, I want you to remember the accuracy. This is not bragging, but I'm saying I want everybody to remember the accuracy of past prognostications or predictions, discussions. Over 10 years ago, when they had the uprising in the Middle East, they said the Arab Spring is here. I said, there will be no Arab Spring. I don't know if anybody remember that, but we was clear on that. Ain't gonna be it. That's a bunch of jive. That they didn't hook that up. That's a plan. That's a scheme. Don't you worry about it. And everybody, I had friends call me on the phone from Tahrir Square in Egypt. Well, they wasn't friends. They were government agents, but they knew what my position was, and they wanted to convince me that there was revolution going on. And I said, no, I said, I don't want to argue with you. But I didn't tell them that I know who you are that's calling me, and I can hear where you're calling from. And it ain't going to be no Arab Spring. Of course it wasn't. But now we have things that are a little more complicated. So just allow me, I'll be as brief as possible. In history, they have certain things that happen, certain alliances, certain allegiances, and those allegiances will drive people into great wars. The last two of the biggest wars, World War I and World War II, was brought on by just half the time events. The First World War, the event that happened, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand of Serbia, wouldn't have got nobody in no war if it was just an isolated incident. But by that time, the world was full of alliances, and all the big boys at that time was lined up on each side. They had the Triple Alliance and they had the Triple Entente. The Triple Alliance might have been the Ottoman Empire, Germany, and somebody else. The other Triple Entente might have been France, Great Britain, and Russia. Later on, Russia dropped out and the U.S. came in. But those alliances is what have started our biggest wars. Those alliances that people, that different groups have. Now they have this 75, almost 80-year-old alliance called NATO in Europe, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And now we have a global situation going on. But we want to explain to our people that get these and what have you, that have the nerve to listen to them, is to have somebody from amongst you explain to you these most thought-provoking realities that they don't think we should have no knowledge about at all. So we'll start now with this latest episode dealing with Russia and Ukraine. And okay, the way they're drawing it is, oh my goodness. Here we are in NATO, here's the poor Ukrainians, and they need our help. Therefore, we're going to send them weapons and everything. They're not a member of NATO, of course. When we talked about those treaties that draw people into, if you get in a fight, I'm with you. So in 1939, when Hitler invaded Poland, since they was part of a treaty organization, right, that was the technical start of World War II. Although the Japanese had invaded China almost 10 years before that. And nobody got in because China was not technically hooked up with nobody at that time. And not only that, just to say a word, China, out of its 4,000-year history, one of the oldest histories in the world, if not the oldest, they never invaded anyone in history. You ever heard of the Great Wall of China? They didn't want to go out and bother nobody. They built the wall to keep other people, hey, you bums, not bums, I'm sure they didn't say that, but you troublemakers and misfits always fighting and messing up, we want you to stay away from us. That's what it means. You build a wall around your whole country. I mean, China's one of the biggest countries in the world. And they build a wall around it, and they call it the Great Wall of China. To keep people, we want y'all like to fight and argue and mess up. we got a great civilization behind these walls, and we want to keep it. And if you will please stay away from us. Not only that, they was the biggest and most powerful economy for thousands of years, up until some years ago, maybe 100 years ago. China and India were always the great big economies, right? But let me get back to this alliance. So those civilizations had policies to keep you away from them. They didn't want to be bothered with us, I guess, or them. And they call it the Great Wall of China. So China does not have a record of invading anyone. They never invaded anybody. Now Europeans, they don't have that kind of, they invade every time they get more than 5 people together. Those 5 people get them some kind of pact. Well, they over there before them over there, and they got a whole lot of stuff, right? That's what it means. Or they got colonies. They got 10 colonies, and we ain't got but 3. Let's go over there and jump on them and take their colonies. That's exactly what World War I was about, taking people's colonies, right? So Germany had just got big in the 1880s, and so under Bismarck, and so he was saying, hey, man, we done got big. So the English done took all the colonies all over the whole world. They done just took everything. And we don't like that. So that's what the war started about. Basically, they call it thieves fall out in some the good historical writings. And then the Second World War is the follow-up of the first because they didn't resolve the issue in the First World War. So then they started the UN to protect, to safeguard the rights of humanity, and let's see what that looks like. The West is so sad about Ukraine, and they say invasion will not stand because it's Russia, right? But the United States have lied, double-crossed. They invaded Iraq twice under the disguise of weapons of mass destruction. They haven't found none, right? And so that was the purpose that they went to war, and they destroyed Iraq. And now the first Gulf War that they call the Gulf War in 91, they used depleted uranium, and they have babies coming out with 3 arms and stuff like that from depleted uranium, causing birth defects. And the men that went over there to fight, it didn't hurt them much. But the women that were in that war came back, and they had the same type from standing on them tanks, taking a group picture, right? They used depleted uranium. Depleted uranium make those shells cut through a tank like butter. That's what it does. That's why the Iraqis, they call it the trail of death or something like that, where they just mowed them down all the way, trying to run back from Kuwait. The Americans, to call them unfair and mean is like using Maxim guns in places like Butawelo and other places against Africans with lion skin shields, right? That's the same thing. It's ridiculous. It's unfair. And a Maxim gun, they can throw spears. I don't know. When I was in South Africa and I did some studies, they said Commander Rhodes, like Rhodesia and all of that they captured that whole southern end of South Africa including the Zulus, great warriors and what have you. And the white folks only lost 8 people in that whole southern end. Boy, why? They had rifles. The rifles could shoot miles, and the Zulus could throw a spear 20 yards if we had a good day, right? I'm just telling you, that's what the people have been up against historically. Now, let's get back to today. Today, everybody is upset in NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Europeans, because Mr. Putin have so-called invaded Ukraine. But Ukraine is like, first it was part of Russia. If anybody remember the name Nikita Khrushchev, he was the one that beat on the UN thing. He's the one during Kennedy's time. They had arguments and stuff. And Nikita Khrushchev said, "We will bury you," talking to the United States. And he'd take his shoes off and beat on the thing in the UN. But when the U.S. had a problem in Cuba about Soviet missiles in Cuba, right? They had the Cuban blockade. They blocked off everything, and they made the Russians, right, take their missiles out of Cuba. Why? Because Cuba is 90 miles away from Florida, and that's too close. And when the Russians began to fall apart in 1992, in that period, technically 89, 90, 92, they had some realignments of treaties, and the world became unipolar. Before, it was multipolar. It had the Soviet Union on one side, right? And it had on the other side the U.S. alliances. I'm going to speed up a little bit. In time, the Russians had invaded Afghanistan in those days, and they got whooped so bad, they went in as the Soviet Union and they came out as Russia, the state of Russia. That's why they call Afghanistan the graveyard of empires. Think about it. The big bad United States. Now, I don't know if y'all read in our writings, but we say the first shooting dropped with the Soviet Union, and the next one going to drop in a hot minute. What does that mean? That means the Soviet Union had discombobulated and disintegrated, and America is next. What is the biggest black eye America have had in the last few years? It is the exit, the running away from Afghanistan, right? Just packed up and run off after being there 20 years. So these alliances that they have around the world have been safety packs, a pack of safety in numbers. I'm going to try to speed up. The whole Western world is jumping on Mr. Putin because he's a bad man. But now, if you study the history of Ukraine, it was a part of the Soviet Union. And there are people right now in Ukraine, half of it is Russian-speaking people, and they're tied to the historical process of Russia. Right now. Okay, not only that, is that during World War II, 5 out of 6 Germans that was killed on the Eastern Front, not at Normandy and other things like where the West. The Russians suffered 28 million dead. So the Russians, when that part of the war ended, World War II, they maintained Poland, they maintain all of those places because they say, hey, you got to remember now, Russia, the Germans was only the second big invasion. Because remember Napoleon going to Moscow? Napoleon. Of course, he froze to death. I bet you he won't go back there no more. Neither will the Germans. Because the Russians always pulled back. The place is so big, I don't know, it have 8 or 9 time zones. Americans have 4. We have 4 time zones here. Like right now in California, if it's 1 o'clock here, it goes back to about 10 o'clock right now. So they have 4 time zones. And if you're driving, which I do all over America all the time, you go through these time zones. Russia has 8 or 10 time zones. Do you know, like they used to have the saying, the sun never set on the British Empire? Because it was all over the world. Well, the sun today never sets on Russia. When the sun is set on one end of Russia, Vladivostok, way over here, at the Pacific side, well, on the other side, sun is setting over there, it's rising over there on the other side, right? Russia is 600 million square miles. That's twice the size of the United States, which is 3,600,000 square miles, with Alaska. Alaska's pretty big. You can only put 3 or 4 Alaskas on the whole continental shelf of the United States, if you could put it over here. Anyway, therefore, the Russians fought the Germans. The Nazis killed 28 million of them. So there's a Nazi party getting big in Ukraine right now. So Russia is, I'm going to speed up. So Russia is saying, hey, man, we can't have that. So he goes on over there, and the whole world now is jumping up. No, not the whole world. This part of the world is jumping up and down. But what is this big scheme that's going on? There's a design policy that's going on in the world today right in front of our face. What does this design policy look like? The United States have lost its productive edge. The United States is... the people, especially the young people in the United States, are basically sad right now. They're sad. They're brokenhearted. When they start off, if they go to college, most of them are going to start off with a college debt. They're going to start off their life in debt. Can you imagine? It's not like before. They're going to start off their life in debt. Plus, the environment in America is decaying so fast. The forest fires in California, the droughts in Lake Mead. Lake Mead used to feed, it still feeds all that, the whole western United States, right? From the Rocky Mountains, I'm telling you. And Lake Mead is that big lake from the dam, and behind it is, when you see pictures of it now, there's rings all around it. Rings where the water level have sunk lower and lower and lower. And they fear that in another few years, they won't have enough water in those huge lakes to run the turbines for electricity. It goes all the way down to LA, goes to Nevada. If you see pictures of Las Vegas and Reno, man, them places are lit up like Christmas trees. When you come out of those mountains, when you come out of the Rocky Mountains and you come out of the high mountains, you can see Las Vegas hundreds of miles away. First you're coming out, but you see a big golden glow. You know what that is? It's the city of Las Vegas. All of those electric lights. It's unnatural. Because what does the light do? If you standing in the light, you can't see outside and it's dark all out there, but people can see you inside. That's why in Africa and other parts of the world, when you look up at the sky, if you're from here, your mouth will drop. Billions of stars. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. You never see them here. Why? There's lights everywhere. You don't see them. But when you go out in safari and you look up, it will dazzle you. Anyway, we're going to speed up. So World War I started by these alliances. Triple Entente on one side and the Triple Alliance on the other. And it was these wars, these alliances. World War II was the same. They had the so-called Axis powers and Allied powers. The Axis powers was Germany, Japan, and Italy. And the Allies was the United States, France, England, and those people, right? Since they were aligned with each other, they drug the whole into World War I. Can you imagine the whole world is at war in World War II? And they still haven't got enough yet. Well, we just want to say that we don't follow their line. They say it's all right for the United States to do weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They say it's all right for the Israelis to bomb and kill us anywhere. They say it's all right for their friends in Saudi Arabia, the richest Arab country in the world, to bomb the poorest Arab country in the world, right? They say that all of that is all right. And the United States is leading that. And then they say, well, it's not all right for the Russians to, just because they lost 28 million people in World War II, it's not all right for you to put a stop to people where the Nazi party that they was fighting against 75 and 80 years ago, right, that killed all of their people. The Nazis killed all those people, 28 million people. The United States and our countries over here, we don't even understand those numbers. 28 million people. Now, that would be in those days. What would happen if people in America, say in those days America had 131 million people, suppose, right, they lost 28 million people at that time, right? The Russians at that time lost those many people. But the people that was killed in World War II, the Germans, five out of every six Germans killed was killed by a Russian. And those places like Ukraine, some of the people, like they got a Nazi party now, they collaborated with the Germans, you see. They don't say all that on the news. They say, oh, bad, Mr. Putin is doing this. And that's why we have a different thing here. We study what's going on in the world. And that's why we're telling everybody, we're going to speed up, but we're letting everybody know we not on the dumb team. The dumb team is people that listen to the media and listen to what they're selling and think that they're selling the truth. They're not. All right. World War I, World War II. Manipulate the information cycle. Right now, there's a new global war or being arranged. Hopefully, since the people involved, they can't have a shooting war. But look at it. Taiwan, which used to be Formosa, right? Part of China. And they're starting trouble. The U.S. is sending weapons and everything to to Taiwan. To start trouble for who? Their big competitor, right? The big competitor is China. What they're doing is they're forcing an old-time alliance where Europe is falling apart. And Europe don't have the backbone to hold on. Number one, Russia sends most of the heating fuel and what have you, right, from Russia to Germany and to Europe. They can't hold on long because it's still winter over there. I don't know if y'all been in Germany and all them places in the winter, but I was over there for a long time, and you're going to be cold, and you need that heating. The United States has its own heating, right? But Europe don't have it. They get most of theirs from Russia. When they drag the part of NATO that's Germany, France, and all those people in with them, the United States is sitting over here like when they last month, 2 months ago, when they made a business deal with Australia to buy their submarines from over here, nuclear-type submarines, that they won't get for 10 years. It's going to take them that long to make them. And they was going to get regular submarines from France, and France was going to hook them up. Well, that started friction between them. I'm going to speed up. What's going on now is a big global realignment. Here's what the alignment look. On one end, you have the Russians, you have the Chinese, right? And you have Iranians, people like that. One group of people is on the upswing, right? China, you can't buy nothing in America that they made in China hardly, nor anywhere else in the world. I mean, years ago when we were in South Africa and we tried to buy Sakina, a doll, she was 1 year old, a doll made in South Africa, we couldn't find one. You know what it said? Made in China. And we did get one, and it was made in America. But right now, only thing you can find made in the world is made in China, everywhere. So they have something called a Thucydides trap. What that means is historically, when one empire was going down, another was coming up, and they would usually have a fight. This goes back to the time of Athens and those city-states. Thucydides was one of those guys. And they say, the mathematicians say that 67% of the time that's right. We talk about the First World War. Remember, on one side was the French, the Americans, and the English. Those are the people who had most of the colonies. The Germans had got big, and they tough by now. They said, hey, man, y'all done already took all the stuff in the world. Y'all got to give us some of that. That's what World War I and World War II was about colonies. That's actually the dialogue. Hey, you going to share some of your colonies, or we taking them? And the Germans set on off. You ain't giving them up, we going to take them. And that's what they was about. The world in World War II, World War I, they said the thieves fall out. That's one of the books that I've read. And then World War II is the second World War trying to wrap up the first. But this time it wasn't a triple alliance and triple entente. Now it was the Axis and the Allies. Try to understand what I'm saying. It was the United States. It was Russia, right? And it was England and all of those people. On the other side was the Axis powers, Italy, the Germans, right? And they was on the other side. And the Japanese, of course. Now that's pretty bad cruise. Both of them cruises pretty bad. You notice they ain't got over the Japanese jumping on them up to today. They still paranoid, right? Why? Because anyway, we're going through that process now. We're telling you this because we don't want you to sympathize with the criminal. If the U.S. cared anything about freedom, love, and everything, they would tell Saudi Arabia to get out of Yemen, right? They would not have invaded Iraq on weapons of mass destruction, and it wasn't none, right? So we saying in this, I'm going to just be brief, because I'll be here all day. They don't have no right to tell nobody about right and wrong, because there's nobody been more criminal-minded than the United States of America and the Zionist state of Israel. Nobody. So they don't have no right to tell nobody nothing. And we just wanted to mention that today because they will confuse you on the radio and all on the news, the Western news. They are professional, unrepentant liars. They tell you half the truth. They won't tell you that the reason that that Russia have to go into Ukraine is because, number one, the Nazi party is getting big there. And it wasn't but 2 or 3 Americans killed by Germans, but it was 28 million Russians killed by them. You see what I'm trying to say? So when you gonna come up right next door and say we're gonna give aid and comfort to the Nazi party, and they're gonna be running around with Nazi flags and everything right next door to you, and the U.S. want you to fight them so they could put missiles right next door to you. You see what I mean? Well, if the U.S. don't like nobody putting missiles next to them, why would they invade, have it out with Russia? Y'all ever heard of the Cuban Missile Crisis? Huh? They say, you got to get that stuff out of here. And they had a line drawn out there. They said, we're going to go into war. That's in the 60s, Kennedy. But that was a secret agreement. It said, okay, we'll hold these ships up, but you got to get those missiles out of Turkey. Turkey is close to who? Russia. They said, we won't talk about it in the news or nothing, but you got to get. So the Bobby Kennedy, which is John Kennedy's brother, they said, we'll do it. We won't talk about it because we don't want nobody to think that we're scared. So they said, we'll pull them out of Turkey, right? So I'm trying to say is we don't let those criminals get us on their side. Why? If they cared about humanity, they wouldn't have invaded. The Europeans would not have invaded the king of Africa. That was Muammar Gaddafi, and all the Africans liked him because, right, he helped them all, right? And now, if you come to Libya, they'll put you in jail and lock you up and beat you to death. Why? Because there were some people in Libya that didn't like for Gaddafi to spend his money, or what they called their money, on Africans. They call him the king of Africa because he supported all of those countries close to him, right? And he stuck with them and he hooked them up. All right. That was Gaddafi. And they took $34 million in gold from him also. So they want you to stay broke and they want you to stay poor. And I don't want to just change the subject, but where in the world have all the people been coming from when they leave, go from Afghanistan, when they leave from the Middle East, they go to Libya, right? Get on those old rickety boats and they drown in the Mediterranean. Isn't that right? They so packed tight they can't stand up. Or they just stand there. Just imagine you got to go across the whole Mediterranean Sea standing up with thousands of people in a little old leaky boat. That's why thousands of people wash up on the shore today. I'm saying this so I want everybody here to understand how this world is working and the part that we play in it. The United States and the West don't care nothing about you. And they allow our people, according to what team you on. The Saudi team is killing more people in Yemen than any part of that region. So it's the richest Arab country in the world slaughtering the Yemenis. Right? The U.S. invaded, along with its other partners, allowed the invasion of Syria. And they allowed the Golan Heights and other parts of Syria to be in the hands of Israelis right now. And there are things going on in that area right today. I mean today. And if you're the Zionist entity, you can kill all the Palestinians you want. And it ain't no problem. You can kill all the Palestinians you want. Well, it's no problem because you're a friend of America, right? And America can invade anybody they want. Weapons of mass destruction. They can invade Afghanistan off of any little, well, we thought there was something going on there, and they can invade them. Don't nothing happen. 28 million Russians killed, right? The Ukrainians, some of them, jumped up friends with the Nazi party is growing big there again. And Putin say, I'm going over there and stop all that mess. And he don't want none of the Americans over there close to him. Because all that area, the history, everybody knows what it is. The Russians, when they won that part of the area in World War II, the Germans, who was way over here, high mechanized, they had a policy called Lebensraum, living space. Where would their living space come from? Russia. They would send all their people over to Russia, all the big planes. Remember how big Russia is. You don't know. That's 6 million square miles. The sun never sets on the Russian state right now. On one end, when it's daylight, it's night on the other. When it gets night on the other, it's daylight on the other. I'm just telling you, that's Russia today. 6 million square miles. The United States is only, with Alaska, 3 million. China is only, biggest China is, 3,200,000 square miles. Brazil, 3,200,000 square miles. Those are small compared to Russia. And the minerals. Can you imagine the amount of trees and water and everything they got, and tin and gold, everything they got in Russia? And the number one oil producer in the world is Russia, not Saudi Arabia. Russia, Russia, Russia. So, I'm going to kind of close in a minute. But the new alliances go like this. On one side, you have China. China is taking over big. China is getting big. China is big. Thucydides, the guy back in ancient Greece, said that one time, anytime you have a power that's coming up, when it gets up so big, it's going to fight the power that's in charge. and they did some mathematical. They said this is probable 67% of the time. That's why Germany, when the British got all over the world and the French and the Spanish and took everything, before the Germans, Bismarck and them got big. When the Germans got big, 1885, what they do? They look at the world and say, hey, we want our piece of this world. The people that already got it, France in the islands, France in Africa, Francophone countries, the Belgian Congo. You know, Leopold owned the whole Congo. I don't know if you can understand how big the Congo is, how rich it is. One person, King of Belgium, owned the whole, they used to call it the Belgium, look on all the maps, the Belgium Congo. King Leopold owned it. And they had Union Manier. They had all this. Now, I learned this stuff from living in Africa for a while. So I'm just telling you what we learned. They had Francophone countries in Africa. What do they speak? French. Then and now. They had Anglophone countries. The other colonies were Anglophone. They spoke English. Right? And then anybody in these Dutch and all those places, the Germans and the Japanese came along during the Second World War. They said, hey, y'all got all this stuff, we taking that. And that's what those wars are about. Not about us, but about taking our property and putting us in a corner, checking our name off, or our tribe, or our group in their side. That's what's going on today. And we just want to say, don't y'all get hooked up. And that's them people right here. They lie so much, it's just not worth even chasing it down. They lie so bad. And I'll move toward a close. The Russians are saying this. Look, in World War II, 75, 80 years ago, most of the Germans, if it was 6 Germans killed, 5 of them was killed by Russians. 28 million Russians dead in World War II. That's a long time ago. And so the Russians are saying, you people in Ukraine talking that old Nazi talk, and y'all and cut our throats, and the people were so froze to death, they just be, you see all the skeletons, they just hands sticking up in the air, they froze to death, right? Because when you kill a body, you know, no more circulation. And if you just died like that, when they got all them bodies and they throw them in graves, you'd have to break their arm for it to go down like this. Russians saying, we ain't going for that. The other thing, new alliances. 20 years ago, the big bad Russians, the big bad Russian bear, was an enemy to us because Afghanistan. Back in those days. Right? Today, there's a new alliance. There's who rescued Syria? The Russians. All the missiles, boop, 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 rescued Syria. Right? Even now, these people are so dirty that the Americans have stolen the Syrian oil fields, and they pump the oil out and give it to their friends, the Kurds, right? I mean, we like the Kurds, except they got to take that Zionist flag out of their stuff. But I'm telling you, don't pay no attention to the U.S. news, because the U.S. news are professional, unrepentant liars. And they don't give you no background from history. What we try to do here today is give you history. And another thing, why do you think there's a handful of people here? It's because we've been doing this for over 40 years, and we're not going to change. We're not going to change this story, because every story we told, guess what? In all those years, what happened? it comes out to be true. And you think they like for a nigger to be able to out-predict and forecast their great schools of thought and their great institutions of whatever they call them, think tanks and all that? We slap the urine out of them every time, on every case. Historically, we've done it here. That's some people here remember everything we said all that time. That's why we're saying this about this. They're not going to trick us to, the bad Russians. Well, right now, it's the nice old Russians, the nice Chinese. You hear how you talk about how they treat the Muslims in China? Right? How bad they treat them? Well, why ain't none of the Muslims saying nothing about it? Because it ain't true. Why is some of the best friends of China is the other Muslim, and China is all throughout the Middle East and everywhere. Why? Because everybody knows the West is lying. They are lying about genocide and all that. Well, guess what? The Chinese are still under these laws. You can't have but one baby. Now that they might be spreading out. But those Muslim areas, they can have many children as they want. Why? It's a law. It's a minority. They're a minority, and they can do what they want. And if you talk to the Imams there, they said, man, they said, what? They said, man, we got Quranic classes, Islamic, the Masjid are full in China, in that part. Right? I'm saying to us, don't let them lying, low-down American Zionist-controlled bums draw us into their alliance. Remember, alliance is deadly. Those alliances, now I'll close, World War I, triple alliance, triple entente. So you had the British, the French, then the Americans. Russia fell out of World War I in 1917. Then you had the other side. On the other side, we happened to choose the losing side. The Ottoman Empire, Turkey, was on the side of the Germans. And that was the way that went. And when we lost that war, when I say we, that means the Ottoman Empire wasn't that nice even at that stage of the game. It wasn't that they was nice, they just happened to be the caliphate at the time. I'm saying that that's where Jerusalem went up the window. That's why Iraq and places like that was being ruled in Saudi Arabia by the Ottoman Empire went over to the British. And I'll tell you what General Allenby said when he came back, and y'all probably heard of Salahuddin Ayyub. He was a great warrior, king, leader, back in the 12th century. They went to his tomb. When he took over Jerusalem, right? When he took over Jerusalem, he sent the white folks away with presents and everything. When the white folks took over Jerusalem, they said the streets was running red with blood. That's what history tells us. So it was up to just blood everywhere. So Salahuddin Ayyub, you know what General Allenby did when in 1918, when they had won back that area? Had been gone for 800 years. He walked up to Salahuddin's mausoleum and kicked his grave and said, Salahuddin, this is how white folks are. After 800 years, they haven't forgot. He said, Salahuddin, we're back. They've been gone for 800 years. So I'm just telling you about the people we already know about them. We've been here with them, so we know who these guys are. Let's do not, to go in detail with all of this, I would be here for another hour, which I'm not going to do. I'm not going to punish believers just because I feel like talking and explaining. So I'll just say in a few minutes, look, those people are lying so bad on the news it'll turn your stomach. They lie so bad, they exclude, they keep things out, right? It's unbelievable. In today's world, there's a new alliance. Let me describe who the good guys are. It's not the Taiwanese. The Taiwanese are with the Americans, right? Taiwan belongs to China. What do the news say? We're going to help Taiwan. We're going to do this. But the treaties say they can't do that, right? The treaties say, right, when Russia fell apart, that you can't come up too close to us. Just like Kennedy told them you can't have missiles in Cuba, that's all the Russians are telling them. Hey, what's the name is next door to us? NATO, you can't put no missiles at it. It don't take but 2 minutes for them to hit Russian territory. We're not putting up with it. And that's why Putin is doing what he's doing. And they're calling him gangster names and everything. But I just tell you, new allies. I'm not saying these are our friends or nothing. But all those other people, NATO and all of them, is on one side. Europe, NATO, and all that is losing. Right now, there's a new crew coming in. China. It's got more momentum than anybody. That's why the U.S. is starting this stuff aimed at China. Who's China working with? Its old friend, right? The Russians. The Russians went into Syria and wiped out all that. They saved Syria from Daesh. Who's Daesh? Daesh is people made up by Americans and Zionists. The people we fight, all of our enemies, they go and build them up, give them stuff to fight, and tell them, go fight the Muslims. And they got them dumb Muslims that take the weapons and are glad to come fight us. That's why we do not technically fight other niggas. They busted my head wide open and did everything. Am I scared of them? Absolutely not. I'm going to keep my mind and my focus on the Zionist, right? Not at no nigga. Why? Because you're wasting your energy fighting it. You got 50,000 niggas sitting on a stool in a cage somewhere, in a penitentiary, at the rec yard, wherever. And all he got to do is throw them a bone and they'll come running out. And so, who you want us to bite, boss? They say, that nigga over there. Go on. And then you'll be in a fight. We don't do that. We're not afraid of the Negroes. But we're not going to fight them. That's why we stay focused on boss man. We don't want no medal for it, but that's what we should get. We should get a medal. You know, maybe some funny hat or something, whatever they put on people. For staying focused on who the enemy is. Right now, just so when you hear names like Russia, call them right now, just temporarily, friend. Not 20 years ago, when they was killing people, killing Afghanis, right? But they got run out of Afghanistan. I'm not saying they repented, but they done changed sides. So the Americans was killing us over there. And the Russians came and shot all them missiles and got rid of the bombs, right? So today, before 20 years ago, they was the bad guys. Today, they're neutral. We can't say they're good guys. But remember what Islam say. If nobody attacks you or join a team that attacks you, right, then you can have relations with them. So before, the Russians were killing Afghans. They were the enemy. Today, they've changed. Not their heart. They didn't change this. I mean, not saying you can't trust them, because so is the Chinese, right? The Chinamans. Mark them off friend. Why? Because all of our people that are at war, you'll find them on the same time. It's called strategic alliance. So people that used to be arguing with each other, so you got Iraq, right? Friend. That don't mean they're perfect. You got Iran. Don't mean they're perfect. You got other parts of the Middle East, Yemen, the richest Arab country in the world, slaughtering the poorest Arab country in the world. That's what's happening, right? Okay. Why is there so few people here? Because this is what we're talking about. You go over there, you can't get in the Masjid. They have 3, some places have 4 Jum'ah prayers. I know 3 myself, right? And they're all full. Why? Because they're not talking about this. They ain't even thinking about it. I'm not calling them scared, but we know the Zionists, our war is with the Zionists first, that means Mossad first, and the Americans second. The Americans are second place now. For us, the Zionists are number 1. Why? I tell you, I'm going to quit in a minute, but I done got started. Look here. The Zionists, their policies. Remember George Floyd? Right? He's on the ground being brutalized for over 8 minutes. What is that? Zionist policy. It's not the old American policy. If you happen to run out of the street and everybody's looking, the old cracker police wouldn't shoot you because everybody's looking, right? But if you're in the backyard jumping over a fence, the police would blast your behind. When you see the police around here now, driving with their lights flashing, we like that because you'll know where the car is. But that is a policy from the Zionist state of Israel. What does that mean? We know from how the FBI approach us, how other people approach us here, is that they have told us there's something, we're going to do this right here. We're going to take off this, that, but there's other things we can't do. That's all they say. Who's that they can't do? That means the Zionists have taken over America, right? And the policies, the head busting, the way they're killing us, black people, is by Zionist policy. And when Zionists, they kick America, the policies they use on us are Zionist policies. When they try to take property or neutralize property, it's Zionist property. Just like in occupied Palestine, if they have a deed from Ottoman times, right, which is a good deed, they kick them out, right? We have a deed from 1981 for all our property. Well, don't worry, we'll get it back. In fact, we're going to sue them for $300 million, and we'll get a nice batch. That's what we're going to do. It don't make no difference. If we trip down and break our neck tomorrow, we still got plenty of videos. They're not just here. They've been spread all over the country. Yeah, we've already done that. We prepared before, right? That makes them mad a little bit because they don't think niggas can think. But we done had over 50 years of doing what we do. We've seen what they've done to our people. And they haven't been able to do it to us. We done gave them the slip. What we're seeing today, you can't find it in no masjid in America. Not only the people don't know, they just don't understand. And guess what? They don't care. But dear believers, we'll close with this, that if you say certain things 3 times in the morning and the evening, I'm satisfied with Allah as Lord, with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the messenger and Nabiyin in Al-Islam Medina is my way of life. That's what we're telling you right now. We're satisfied with Allah as Lord. That's why we're saying what we're saying. That's why we've been doing what we've been doing. Because we read in the Quran, it happens to tell us to do exactly what we're doing, right? And we're satisfied with that. That don't mean you have all the friends. You don't win no popularity contest. You don't find nobody in history, the Anbiya, hardly none of them win any popularity contests. And the ones that had a big crew was fortunate, right? So here come Moses, look at all the people he got. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the whole horizon is closed. But they had some prophets and messengers teaching the same thing, and they had 2 or 3 people, right? They didn't have nobody sometime. They might have been by themselves. And that's the road we choose. We don't care what. We're not trying to be with them. Dear believers, and this is Black History Month. Just give me one more second. I ain't going to be here too long. I don't want to. Anyway, we happen to have a certain position right now, and we know it. The revival of Islam in America is the Negro's job. And everybody is saying that. That means all the Arab groups, the Indo-Pakistani groups, they saying we are afraid of Boss Man. And we're grateful to Boss Man. We come here from Pakistan, broke, we drove cabs, and now we rolling big time, right? That's what they're thinking, right? They have an immigrant mentality. We're not immigrants, right? And we know Boss Man better than anybody. So the Islamic revival at this time in America and headed to the global revival is our job. We're not part of no saved sect that if you follow one hadith, you're going to be going to heaven and the rest of the niggas is going to hell. We're not in that crew, right? We don't fight other Muslims. We don't fight. If we don't fight Negroes and they bust you upside the head and steal all your property, you know we're not fighting we don't do it. We doing just what we do now. We stick on that Zionist American and whoop his behind. We're psychologically whipping his behind because guess what? Some of the other Muslims picked this up and you know what? They know we right. They already know it. You don't have to ask them, is that right what he's saying? You don't have to ask them nothing. And they just look down with a smile because they don't want the white man catching them even smiling at us. That's what's happening right now. It's happening today. When we go places, they know what we're talking about. They know what we stand for. And we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep doing that. Why? That's our mission, right? That's our goal. Remember, and I'll close with this. Allah is Lord. Islam Medina and Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam as an-Nabiyyin. We're satisfied with that. All that other stuff, we don't care, technically. We're satisfied with that. That means if you're satisfied with it, that means you're happy about that. Can you imagine that whatever you read in the Quran, you're happy you read it? How many other people, say, oh my goodness, it's talking about Allah loves those who fight in his cause like a solid cemented structure. They can read it. They read the Arabic way better than we do. But they ain't happy with that because they put prefixes before. What about my job? What about my degree? What about my beautiful children running around, right? It's my responsibility to make sure when I die they have millions in the bank, right? Yeah, you got to watch out. And I don't even want to say this. This is happening with everybody. And we got to help our brothers that come here from overseas. All of them. I'll close with this. If you go to the movies now, what do you see as far as Negroes is concerned? Who's in the movies now? This one born, bred American left, Denzel Washington. Everybody else, Africa, England, here, right? I don't care who it is, whether it's The Wire, whether all those are immigrants. And they giving them jobs to put me and you out of business. Because they'll be a little happier, like all other immigrants, a little happier to be here. And they've lived through the British and the French experience, but hell, if America let us come here and get over, right? Can't be all bad. But you study Africans. The children that are born and raised here are just like us. Their parents are not. Their parents are happy to have a job. They just, hey, man, don't look, you don't know how bad. And I don't blame them. I'll give you an example. I used to, when I was in Africa, I would go and come, and we had an exercise. All my friends was boxers. I used to crawl on the ground like an alligator. You know, of course, it's 50 years ago. It helped you build up, you know what I mean? And all the boxers had some exercise like that. If I did it in South America, everybody, when I was down, everybody would look. When I would do it in Africa, they didn't pay attention. You know why? Because it was polio in those days. I'm talking about 50 years ago. Polio everywhere. 15% of the people had something like polio, where they had to crawl on the ground. They had to get around like that. That was not now. I'm talking about when I was there, when I lived there. I go back every now and then. I'm just telling you. So I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to our brothers that come here. If you look at the names of Muhammad so-and-so right there in Maryland, you look at them, go for the vote and all that. They're running for everything. And I don't call them they, but they're sold on being here in America. They're happy about that. Don't worry about it. Their children. And what's boss man going to do? He going to hand everything to them. But their children go to school with Negroes, right? And their attitude is the same as mine and yours. You know why? When they walk out of the house, the police is bothering them and doing everything, right? So they don't ask them, are you an immigrant? Right? And they don't even talk. They talk like us because they live in black neighborhoods, and so they're technically black. But the parents, they're happy to be here. You'd be happy too. If the dictators in Africa, they steal everything. They don't leave a nigger nothing. The white man leave you 50 cents a quarter. Our dictators in Africa, we have a joke. I'm going to leave in a minute. If they drive in one of them big Benzes, I don't even know if they make them. They used to call them a Grand 600. That's the one with 2 sunroofs and 2 back seats facing each other. Mercedes-Benz. That's what they used to drive. Jomo Kenyatta used to drive them, all of them. If they saw a little baby ready to eat something in their hand, they would stop and snatch it. You know, the white man would let them have that. Because he done stole everything else. But our dictators, it's just a joke. I'm going to close, but let me tell you one last joke before I leave. It's not a joke. It's based on reality. A Chinaman and an African, they went to this big university together. So the Chinaman went back to China. The African went back to Africa. The African brother came to visit the Chinaman. And he said, man, you rolling. You got it. looking good, everything. So the Chinaman rolled back this up on the top floor of one of these big places. He rolled the windows back. He said, you look out there. You see that development, that this, that, and other. I get 10% of that. So that sparked the African to thinking. He went back home. When he invited the Chinaman to come visit him in Africa, he rolled back the window and said, look at that out there. So the Chinaman said, I don't see nothing. He said, that's right, I get 100% of all that. In other words, the Chinaman let the country build up and took 10%, and Africa took everything for his own black behind and didn't spend nothing on the people. I'm not saying that's a reality, but it gets close. Tell the truth. I don't care whether you're from. Tell the truth. And it's true whether you're in Pakistan. Pakistan, Zinzabad. I used to go visit in Islamabad. That means long live Pakistan, I guess. Y'all know more better than me. And I would look at them lying jokers. Our people that we trust are so crooked, it's unbelievable. They are crookeder than white folks. Because white folks are going to leave you some crumbs to fight over, right? They leave some crumbs. If we ain't here, they're going to throw some crumbs around so we be fighting each other over them crumbs. But the Negro or the Pakistani, in Pakistan, he takes everything. He don't leave nothing. Good gossip, man, y'all is cold. I mean, that's the reality. O Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. We seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. We seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness. We seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us with what is lawful. Keep from us what is prohibited. With thy grace, make us free from want of what is besides thee. Ameen. Your comment is